The odd couple of third-person shooters returns for another shot at fame and fortune in Kane Lynch 2. Featuring a new look, a new caper, and a new city, the dog days of this controversial series may soon be at an end. But has this rehabilitated shooter learned enough from past deeds to finally make it big in Shanghai?
Look, I want out, but I need to steal.
Kane, welcome to Shanghai. Long fucking flight, huh? Good to see you.
Ex-cons Kane and Lynch have had something of a tough working relationship together, but when the desperate Lynch rings his former partner up with the job of a lifetime, Kane finds that it's one he can't easily refuse. Dog Days takes the Michael Mann-inspired tones of the original and splices it up with the veneer of an internet-age documentary, a bold new direction for the series that definitely sets it apart from the rest. Despite an interesting new look, though, the story itself fails to hit any real high notes. The plot stumbles in its hurried pace, the dramatic tension between the two conmen seems to be all but exhausted, and you may find yourself disappointed by the jolting resolution in the final act. It definitely reaches for the cinematic caliber of something greater, but as it stands, Kane and Lynch's Twisted Tristan China comes off as little more than a gory home video. With problematic elements from the original Kane & Lynch pruned away, it's clear that IO Interactive went into Dog Days with some conscious changes in mind. As a result, the single-player campaign of the sequel largely seems to play it safe. There are no more heists or squad commands, and only dangling remnants of what used to be full-on stealth segments. Missions are more or less focused on simply killing the enemies that cross your path, and improved shooting and cover systems help facilitate this transition to a more combat-driven pace. Minus slight variations in the types of guns you're using, though, there isn't much that sets one shootout in this game apart from the next. The action largely feels one note. Shanghai as a game environment provides a picturesque backdrop for all the street-side carnage taking place, but apart from a brief vehicular segment of the game's climax, Dog Days empties its meager bag of tricks early on. Co-op mode returns, now in both split-screen and online varieties, but the mission and level designs don't seem particularly conscious of it. Some instances have the pair of killers temporarily separated, but whether you have a buddy or the extremely capable AI helping out, you simply don't feel that the game was explicitly designed for the team experience. Factoring in the brisk 4 to 5 hour campaign, the game's single-player element is decidedly weak. But in terms of competitive multiplayer, Kane Lynch 2 shows considerable effort with modes that tie in well with the game's themes of treachery and greed. The most notable game type, Fragile Alliance, throws players into a cooperative heist under the conceit that any one of them could backstab their team at any time and make away with all the dough for themselves. Other modes are built on similarly interesting premises, which can also lead to tense and exciting online matches. And with a rudimentary RPG-style progression system, there's something for the player to invest in as well.
Do I look like a fucking cop? Come on, get your fucking joint together!
Though the first Kane & Lynch had a workable template for a third-person shooter, it's no secret that the controls could sometimes fall a bit on the clumsy side. Dog Days acknowledges this with a more maneuverable shooting and cover system, discarding the automatic sticky cover of its predecessor for a manual button press. Paired with other genre standards like regenerative health, blind fire, and shooting from the hip, the game's feel is in line with what you'd expect from most other third-person shooters on the market, down to the typical selection of pistols, shotguns, and rifles from the game's limited armory. Missing in the sequel are grenades, at least in the conventional sense. Sticking to Dog Days' homebrewed violence aesthetic, you're urged instead to seek out stray gas containers and lob them at foes, shooting them mid-air for makeshift explosions. If the situation gets desperate, you can take people hostage and use them as human shields. It works well enough on hapless AI victims, but online, it doesn't quite work as reliably on players. Perhaps the biggest element of Dog Days' psychology is the idea of being down but not out. Kane & Lynch's interpretation of modern warfare's last stand. After sustaining a significant amount of damage, the player is knocked to the floor for one last chance at downing a foe or crawling into cover for a quick recovery. The concept isn't entirely original, but it works very well in the context of the game. Limping to cover after barely surviving a campaign shootout definitely adds to the suspense, and sudden acts of treason online are always prone to a retaliatory strike from the fallen. Kane Lynch 2 handily outshines its predecessor in the gameplay department, though it's still far from perfect. None of the guns have a characteristic feel that differentiates them from other weapons, and melee options are decidedly lacking. Yet if you take into consideration all the other elements that do work, the sequel serves up a much improved shooter that can compete within the genre. Basking in a hazy mosaic of image artifacts and light streaks, Kane Lynch 2 is a striking recreation of dynamic digital media. Rattling explosions disrupt game visuals like a jostled internet stream, while simulated censorship makes blurred-out headshots somehow feel more violent and real. With everything set within an intensely detailed reproduction of Shanghai, Kane Lynch 2 fully sells you on its unique visual style. Only the nauseating chase camera actually damages playability, and a Steadicam option will let you book it without getting a headache. Some players may find it overbearing, but if the trailers have turned you on to the game's lo-fi vibe, this will be one trippy ride through China that you won't soon forget.
Fucking dogs!
The gunplay is tighter and the online features are better, but even as a general improvement over the original, Kane Lynch 2 feels like it's still catching up with what other games in the genre have been doing right all along. It isn't quite the blockbuster it intends to be, but for an otherwise decent shooter with unmistakable flavor and interesting online modes, Dog Days definitely makes good on its end of the deal.
We gotta land!